listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. First, before we start, we want to let you know we are now on Apple Podcasts and on Stitcher, so please subscribe to us from wherever you get your podcasts. That way you can get the newest episodes of Range Minded as soon as they drop. Also, if you already are a subscriber, thank you, and please give us a rating and review if you could. This is episode 16, which is part one of a two-part series where we dispel a bunch of myths and misconceptions surrounding firearms. Everything from the misconceptions about buying a firearm and the gun show loophole, to how the NICS instant background check works, and whether or not the UK actually confiscated every single handgun in their country, with the exception of 8 of them. As we go through these myths and misconceptions, feel free to follow along with the links we've provided for sources in either the podcast description or online at iishooting.com. As always, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy episode 16 of Range Minded, the myths and misconceptions about guns, part 1. Hello, and welcome to another episode of...
Hello.
I'm hashtagging, sorry.
Steve I try to beat Steve on the hello.
Hello.
He's usually right there.
Steve's becoming a millennial as we speak right in front of our eyes.
So I'm like the curious case of Benjamin Button, only not.
This is episode number 16.
16.
And this is going to be a two-parter because we have a lot to cover.
Yes.
So myths and misconceptions about firearms, the gun world, gun laws, any kind of myths and misconceptions surrounding firearms, because there are a lot.
We'll probably have a couple episodes, not just these two, but...
It might be a recurring thing,
yeah.
But because there are so many myths and misconceptions and just flat out wrong facts that people spread. I mean, even in gun stores and in ranges and everything.
Gun people consistently have.
Would you say that gun people are the worst offenders?
Maybe. Depends on what the myth is or the misconception is. And I'm sure we'll get into some of it, but coming down to even carrying a gun, some people have completely the wrong idea.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I think everybody's guilty of it. We'll just put it that way, and that includes folks like us, news organizations, your average gun enthusiast, people, other people who work at gun stores, anybody.
I would probably say the worst offenders are politicians.
Yeah. What you notice, though, is they're uninformed about almost everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and sometimes they don't even want to. They may be informed, but they flat out lie because the first person to get their voice out there
is going to be the one that gets
the voice that's heard. Yeah,
sure.
That might be.
Yeah. So where do we want to start with this one? It was funny because I was starting to write a list of these down. And I was like, I don't know if I can come up with a bunch of them. Like, I don't know, maybe like 3, 4. I have about 24 sitting on a list because it's just, there's that many.
Ricky really prepared too, I can tell.
I wasn't as prepared as
you guys. He's got a packet of information not in front of him. So, well, Steve, let's start with you. What's the first one that you found, the first one that came to mind when I gave you this idea?
So the whole gun show loophole thing, right? Everybody knows you can just go to a gun show and you can buy an RPG if you want. Yep. No big deal.
Yep. Yeah. Or grenades or... Yeah.
I did 3 last week. It was awesome.
Nice.
Come on, people. Is there... And I know we're kind of preaching to the choir on this, but seriously, how do people still believe that you can just go to a gun show and buy whatever you want?
It's been spouted. And so now it's a gun show loophole.
Ad nauseum. Yeah.
And they don't even know what that means or what they're even referring to.
It's a stupid little buzzword that oh, yeah, that's totally true. In reality, and I know most of you guys know this, and hopefully if you got some friends that believe this farce, you can say, hey, listen to Steve because he's the sage on this. No, I'm not. But in reality, if you go to a gun show and it's an FFL dealer, you have to do paperwork. They have to do a background check unless they have a concealed weapons permit and that background check has already taken place. But that being said, if maybe you can hear we got people. There's a lot of stuff going on this morning. So
it's a busy morning.
But the difference would be maybe if the purchaser's concealed carry address is different than maybe their driver's license. I know we asked for 2 forms of ID. Or the dealer may feel like, and this is another misconception we can talk about later, the dealer can stop the sale at any time whatsoever.
Or we can background check whoever we want.
It's true, if we feel like. if we feel like we need to pull that permit.
Even if they have a permit.
And another thing that might kind of tie along with that, purchasing with a permit, is, they might say, well, what if they committed a felony between, here and there getting their permit? Well, I guarantee you that the sheriff's office is going to be at that guy's house pulling his permit the instant something goes wrong.
I mean, even when you get pulled over by the police, they run your identification or run your license plate. You give them your driver's license. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're going to know real quick.
No, once they run it up, they can tell if you have a permit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a big misconception, is we'll just tackle it head on. And let me go back a little bit, too, to say that the reason we're tackling all these myths and misconceptions is, A, to make fun of you, but also to arm you with the information. If somebody does present an argument who is anti-gun or is trying to stigmatize gun ownership or gun enthusiasm, say, look, actually, no, here's the real information. Here's the real data behind it. And we'll provide links with all that kind of stuff. But anyway, a big misconception is that it's really easy to get a gun.
It is super, super easy.
It's easier to get a gun than it is to buy vegetables.
Barack Obama told me that a few years ago.
Did he really say that?
He did. Apparently, he really did. I know he said the whole thing, too, about it's harder to buy a book than a gun.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's simply not true.
Yeah. So what is where are people getting this loophole from? And I did that in air quotes so you guys know.
So
but,
from my perception, where I think this whole loophole thing came from is the private sale aspect. Now, there's some caveats to a private sale. So it's true. The feds cannot govern a peer-to-peer sale within the seller or the buyer's state. Okay, but if the buyer goes to another state, under law, they have to have a background check done by an FFL. Did you guys understand that? Did you know that?
Yeah, you have to. If it's basically what's called an FFL transfer. Yep. So if let's say, Ricky, you're here in Idaho and I'm in Illinois, and I want to buy a gun from you, I have to go through a background check in Illinois in order to buy your gun.
Even a private sale, by law,
should all go
so
through.
It's not. We're not saying like,
FFL.
hey, I bought this gun off Gun Broker, I'm going to have it shipped to my place.
Right.
That's different, because that does go from FFL to FFL. Mm-hmm. But if I'm from Oregon and I come across here to Boise to buy a gun that I found on some newspaper, whatever, private sale,
it needs to be facilitated by
a law.
FFL.
An FFL has to perform a background check because that's just the law. I don't know how often that actually takes place, and I don't know how the feds even govern that. Honestly, it's still a peer-to-peer sale. I don't know how they can maintain and manage that from happening. The thing is especially say if it's from California guy or gal, guy is a generic term, right? If they come over here and buy a Glock 19X, and maybe Joe Citizen has no idea what's on the registry for California. Zero clue what the DOJ says is okay to own.
That or even mag caps.
Yeah.
Magazine capacity laws.
They could have just created a felon.
Yeah.
They did commit a felony in a sense, but at least an illegal transaction. But here you go. You just sold somebody a gun that probably knows anyways they shouldn't be buying that gun if they're from California. And it's just going to be a sour.
There's a lot of liability to it. Huge. There really is.
Huge.
And there's a lot of liability to a seller, and there's even more liability to a gun shop. It's not even if it were, even the laws aside, there's a lot of money that goes into starting a gun shop, starting and running a gun shop.
And I don't think the general public, really understand. The firearms industry is the most regulated industry in the United States, bar none. I don't. Oh, what about alcohol? No. So you tell me that Jim Beam has to go get permission from the federal government to make a gun, get permission to procure the materials to do so, get permission to ship the firearm to somebody else that has to get permission from the feds to buy it, and then the end user has to get permission to buy it from them. Yeah, firearms are the most regulated industry in the United States.
Right, and despite what you've seen on TV or heard in the news, in order to walk, and let's walk you through what goes through a firearm transaction if you buy it, let's say from here at Independence.
Sure, maybe people don't. Yeah.
Let's say somebody walks in and say, "Hey, I want to buy that Glock 19 right there. That's a great looking gun. It's stippled. It's Is that the right word?
Stippled, not stippled.
That's what I thought.
Not stoppled.
Not
Okay.
stimpling.
Stimpling, that's the other one.
Stippled.
Stipple.
And
Much like artwork.
It's got a
stipple.
red dot on it. Steve painted it pretty colors.
Pink.
It's got Mullen Labe on it. That thing's got me written all over it. That's my gun. I want to buy that gun.
Sure.
So I go up to you, Steve, and say, hey, I want to buy that gun. What do we do next?
I say, let's go out back and then we just do cash. No, I don't do that. First thing I ask is for current ID, and I'll ask you a couple times, is this your current address?
Okay.
Or I'll say, hey, driver's license and concealed permit. If you have a concealed permit, makes life easier. Now, if those two don't have the right address, well, there might be a little bit of confusion there.
Sure.
And this is a little heartburn here, a little caveat, side note here. The DMV, for some reason, if you move, they don't like changing the address on your driver's license. Which when
That's how I am. I'm still up in Moscow, but my CCW is down here.
It's super frustrating to gun dealers because then, well, do you have something government issued, a driver's or a vehicle registration or some kind of a bill from a city or a government entity? And that's the other thing. If your IDs don't have your current address on them, we need something that's got your current address that's government issued. People bring their insurance cards and stuff. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It has to be something from the state or the county.
yeah.
Or,
Yeah, vehicle registration or
Fishing licenses work actually.
is in Idaho, is it the water bill or the power bill?
Only if there are some private entities.
Yeah.
That
you
Idaho
have
Power is a private company, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yep.
The Boise City of Water. I think Boise City would
That's
work the
it.
water
Yeah,
bill.
that's municipal,
something
so.
city, something municipal that is a government entity to prove it. Tax return,
Yeah.
something from the IRS, that kind of thing. Anyway, so we confirm your address is the real deal, and then you fill out a form called a 4473. That's what there's a dash in there somewhere, but
It is a little frustrating too because people more and more frequently are moving around. Like they move quite often.
Yeah.
I've noticed, and
Well,
so
yeah, they're buying all the houses, so I can't move.
yeah.
That happened to me in Illinois. I had moved a bunch of times, moved from apartment to apartment, and I think I went in to buy a gun, and the address that I wrote down on the 4473 wasn't the same as on the driver's license.
Problem.
So I had to show them, something else government issued. I think it was like a bill or something like that from the city or whatever to prove that was my current address. And but you don't think about it.
Right.
Now
You know?
you also have to have a photo ID. You can't
Correct.
you can't just bring in your vehicle registration and that be sufficient.
And
you
the other
have to have
thing-
a photo ID with it.
Yeah, sorry. And the other thing that I won't accept is they'll say, "Well, I got my power bill on my phone. Can I?" No, I want a physical copy because I'm making a copy of that, which isn't required from the ATF. We do make copies of IDs and retain them with our 4473s. That's just to cover our butts. It's not something that has to be done by any means. So
Right.
prepare for that too. So once you fill out that 4473, there's a series of questions, right? The very first segment is your where your residence, that kind of information.
Yeah, basic info.
Where you're born, your social security is up to you. It's an option. If we're performing a background check, that does make it quicker.
So if you have and I tell people this all the time, if you have a CCW permit, please do not put your social security number on there.
It's
We
not
don't need
required.
it.
Yeah, and I honestly, I grew up in an era where I get frustrated that I have to. There's no reason that people need to know my social security number. Zero whatsoever. But it's out there now anyway, so who cares, right?
What
Yeah.
is it, Steve? What's your social? You mind telling us?
It's a 1, 2, none your business. Anyway,
Sounds like mine.
So we get down there, and then you get to there's a series of questions that they answer. Now, people say, well, they can just lie on a form. They absolutely can, but they've just lied on a federal document, which
Is perjury.
Is a perjury and is a felony. So, and I've had people answer truthfully, honestly, and we canceled sales.
Yep.
Because they were honest.
And we've had cops call us up, or law enforcement officers. I've had this plenty of times, but the officers call us up, the sheriff's department, right when we submitted background check and say, "Hey, is this guy still in the store? Can you retain him?"
Yeah.
And just
It's not
kind of like not retain him, but like kind of
Stall him
a little bit until we show up
because they want to arrest him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't happen all the time. But it's reality. Absolutely.
serious.
Well, and it's nice to see that that's actually it's working.
Yeah,
the system works.
It happens, right?
Yeah.
So then it goes through something that's called NICS, the National Instant Check System, and this is where
That's the background check.
The Dems are like, the anti-gunners, not the Democrats, because there's some good Democrats that love guns. The anti-gun people are like, well, it's an instant check. There's no way they can catch everything. Well, it goes to a database.
A national database.
Yep. And there are some... we saw that when the Navy guy shot up a bunch of people. He was dishonorable discharge. It never got reported. And so...
It was human error.
Yeah,
is what it was.
It was a problem, right? But for the most part, they scour through the FBI, the ATF, and one of the other, and they scour electronically. And if there's nothing comes back, then we get a response within seconds normally. Like I've had it as soon as I do it. We do it online here. I hate dealing on the phone with those people. Sorry, microaggression, but. It's just so much easier to do it online. There's less error. You spell everything out.
It's all digital.
They're from Virginia, so I have a hard time understanding some of their.
They talk fast and really fast,
and it's always like a real thick accent. What's your FFL number? Type thing, and then it's so quick. You're right. It's so fast that it's like, what was the response? And they don't like to repeat themselves. Like
right. Well, they're probably understaffed,
and so. If we do it online, it's just so much easier. Once we get that back, that all gets recorded on our portion of the 4473, and that gets we retain that information, and that information is retained indefinitely.
I was gonna say indefinitely. You don't ever get rid of it.
Yeah, so it's not like 30 years and then we throw it away. No, the ATF requires that we keep that forever.
I thought there was a stipulation for 20 years.
Nope, we keep it forever.
Especially if it's electronic now.
Yeah.
It's probably a lot easier to keep.
Well, no, we have to have a physical copy.
We keep a physical copy.
Oh, okay.
It's printed off. Yeah, we keep a physical copy. Because at some point, and it happens, every FFL holder gets an audit. That's just the way it is. And it's something that we accept as FFL holders. Which I'm fine with, honestly. Anyway, different story. Once that transaction, or the background comes back clean, then the transaction takes place. Again, if there's a problem... There's three responses that we get from NICS. It's proceed, delay, or deny. Now the delay is not uncommon. If you have a really common name, chances are you're going to get delayed. That's why it might not be a bad idea to put your social security down. It kind of ties you to it.
Or get a CCW permit.
Or a CCW.
If you're buying lots of or if it's a frequent thing where you come in and buy a firearm, it's worth your while to come in.
And we get a lot of
permit.
Retired law enforcement. They're like, I can't remember what the form is. The retired law carry thing, but that doesn't count as a CCW to do background checks. So I still have to do background checks on a retired law enforcement, which is frustrating, but that's just the way it is. So you just might as well get one. Anyway, so the delay, like I said, is not uncommon. It happens fairly frequently, but it doesn't mean you did something bad. You just might have something that your name is very similar to somebody else's.
Yeah, if your name is John Smith.
Or you forgot to put junior on the form, some kind of cadence in there. That could be it.
Well, and I've had it too where people could, regular customers, they've never had issues with the background check, and all of a sudden their name is having issues, and they come back. It'll be delayed, but then they'll come back and still get their gun. So they're not doing anything.
And your ID could have been stolen too. There could have been something in there.
Yeah, there could have been identity theft somewhere. Mm-hmm. So, and here's another good myth. If you pass the background check, gun stores have to sell you a firearm. Nope. It's your legal right?
I can absolutely cancel that sale at any time for any reason or no reason.
Yeah.
And I've done it before.
Yeah, if somebody's acting weird, we're not going to sell a gun.
And we'll be clear on that.
Yeah.
Gun stores...
We have the right.
Have the right to refuse service to anybody for any reason or no reason.
Well, and another thing, too, is we also rent guns here. If somebody's acting weird, even... coming to rent a gun and shoot on a range, we're not going to rent them a firearm.
Right.
And I'll give you a situation. The Orlando shooter went to another gun store. The guy told him, nope.
Really?
I'm not selling you stuff. And guess what? He went to a different gun store.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy, they did what they could. They still found a way to get a gun. Anyway, the other response is deny, okay? Which is obvious, right? Should make sense. You may have lied on your form, something. You're denied. Sorry. No deal. If you feel like you've been wrongfully targeted as a deny or delay, you have a petition option to go to the ATF and there's a process, and it's a long process.
And let's say don't take it out on the gun store.
No.
Yeah.
Because they're just kind of the messenger at that point.
And we have no idea. There is zero information about why that person is denied. Honestly, I don't care. Like, some of it's pretty odd. Like, 9 times out of 10, I can see somebody coming in to buy a gun. I'll be like, that guy's getting delayed. I just know.
Yeah, you've done this for, a couple of years.
Yeah.
So.
And then there's some people that, like, we're both surprised that there was, like, a deny in there.
Oh, really?
And we had one customer in particular, obviously I'm not going to give his name, but had a past, and
sure,
and all that was expunged, but the courthouse forgot to
expunge it.
They forgot to file the information they needed to get it cleaned off the record for NICS.
Oh man!
And he wasn't pissed at us, but he's like, "What the heck?" It was like 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So then he had to go through all the legwork and start all over again, contact his attorney, and do everything all over again. And then they fixed it, and now he's got a CCW, so everything's fixed. And he thought it was in the beginning. But, yeah, they forgot to take care of some information.
But if somebody says that it's really stupid easy to get a gun and gun shops will sell anybody a gun and all that kind of stuff, just tell them, think about it this way. It's in the gun store's best interest to make sure that they cover their butts as much as possible. Make sure everything is legit. Because, like you said, the ATF will come and audit you at some point. And you have to go through every piece of paperwork, every transaction, right?
Being an FFL holder is stressful. In a way, it feels like not the local field agency, but the ATF up
the
on
nebulous
the top. Yeah,
national ATF.
It really feels like they hate gun stores in a way, but their job is stressful, right? They have a lot of things to worry about, but they just got to make sure everybody's kosher with what they're doing.
Right.
Now, another misconception, you guys probably had this planned, but
lay it on us.
I'm as we're going, but it spins off of this. What is registering a firearm? And so a lot of people, it's a misconception that when you go through a background check or you fill out these 4473s that we were talking about, form 4473, that you're registering your firearm. That's false. That's not a registration
in the state of Idaho, right? Because we're not a registry state.
Yeah, but I'm just saying
right. any form
4473 or NICS background check is that's not a registration. Now, California or other states have
a separate
registration.
Yeah, I think
for
Michigan does for handguns, I believe. Out east, and
I think Washington does now too.
Do they really?
Yeah, one of those. I don't know. I probably should know this, but
yeah, there are states around the country that some do, some don't.
And I despise that. Deeply despise the idea of registration.
Well, and you know what? We were talking about this earlier before the podcast started. Here's why. Because people say, there's always that slippery slope argument, and people discount that for some reason. Well, it's a different country, so we'll just throw that out there. But in 1997, Britain confiscated handguns all across the UK.
And now they're trying to confiscate knives.
Right.
Well, they're scary.
They were so successful in confiscating these handguns, they recovered every single handgun in the UK except for 8 of them.
It's pretty amazing.
Do you know why?
Why is that?
Because they had records. Prior to 1997, in order to own a handgun, you had to have a certificate from the government to do so.
There was a registration.
And so it was registered.
Which is similar to Australia.
Yeah. Now
you have to have
absolutely.
a permit.
Mm-hmm. And those are different countries. It's not the U.S.
Right.
But
U.S. it's going to be extremely difficult. Still,
they used a registry, went down the list, and confiscated. Mandatory. Everybody had to give up their handguns.
Yep. There was no buyback.
It was give us your handguns, and that was a real thing that happened. I mean,
but it's just common sense.
If people ever bring up the slippery slope thing, or we're just going to stop here. I mean, that's an example.
Yeah.
I mean, look up the history of firearms laws in England. I mean, and like I said, different country. They don't have.
Yeah, they don't have a Second Amendment. You're right.
Right.
But how often do we hear the anti-gun politicians say, we want to use, civilized countries, their examples of gun laws, which are Australia and England, which is funny to me because Australia now has more firearms than before the ban.
Right.
And they're working on loosening the restrictions on suppressors and handguns. You still have to be part of a club to buy a handgun, but it's going to be, they're trying to make it easier.
Yeah, and if you are interested in Australian gun laws and the gun enthusiast lifestyle down in Australia, you can check out our episode from a while back.
Yeah,
because I don't remember the episode number.
Yeah,
but
yeah, my good friend Chris came up and we talked to him a lot about it. And
yeah, the Australian is what that one's called.
Yeah,
it's a great interview with Chris about that, because it's not what you think. It's not what you think.
So as far as registration, what do we see on our side? So on the Form 4473, we do write down the serial number of the firearm and the make and model, obviously, all that stuff.
And there's reasons for that particularly, yeah.
But when we run a background check, all we click is it's a sale of a handgun or sale of a long gun.
Or a receiver frame.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. So there is no serial number in the NICS background check. We have to retain a copy. So if the federal government wanted to go through the hassle, they could find it. But they would have to come physically here, I guess. I guess we could scan copies if they want.
Well, that's not... Yes and no. So if sorry, we're getting into the weeds a little bit. When it comes to a crime committed, so the last gun store I worked at, that happened. Somebody committed a crime with a gun they purchased from us. So what happens is they got the firearm, they read the serial number, they contact the manufacturer. The manufacturer says, we send it to distributor X. They contact distributor X. We send it to this particular gun store. Then they call this gun store, or whatever, the gun store that got it from the distributor, and they say, hey, this is the customer's name that committed the problem. This is the serial number. We need to know the purchase date. Because they have the serial number.
And it's very, very, it's very narrow though. It's not a broad spectrum.
It's a case by case basis.
Yeah, case by case. So we retain those forms indefinitely, as Steve mentioned, do the Form 4473. But who's to say you haven't sold that gun private party at that point?
Sure.
You know what I mean?
That's true.
There is no registration process after a private party. That gun kind of just vanishes,
and that's why
potentially. I mean, it could be 5 hands down the way after that 4473 has been completed. So
you're not going to get it registered. It's not registered necessarily to your name, especially if you've sold it private
to the
party.
original purchaser. Yeah. There's a connection to the original purchaser. And then from there, it could go anywhere.
Now, if you wanted as a firearm owner to have your own butt covered, you can, if you private party, have a bill of sale. And then you have the person's info.
Or you could go through a company.
Yeah, we can do a private party transfer here at $25 for the background check that way. But if usually what I say, if people, because there are a lot of people apprehend, well, I don't want to deal with selling them peer to peer. Well, that's fine. Require a CCW.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Then know that you're not selling it to somebody that's got a problem.
Yeah, and I would say 99, and I don't have a stat for this, so don't go looking it up, but I would say 99% of the people who do private party transfers are legal, law-abiding citizens. Like, I've only sold one firearm private party, and I actually...
Well, 72.3% of all statistics are made up
on the spot.
That's true.
I sold a firearm private party, and I had never done it before. I was a little nervous, but I made the guy fill out a bill of sale, look at his ID, all that kind of stuff, to make sure that everything looked legit and that the information that he wrote down matched everything. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's part of being a responsible firearms enthusiast, I think. Yep. And I think next time if I were to sell anything private party, I'd go through an FFL and say, let's make sure everything's kosher and good from there. Because thankfully, and I looked this up in Idaho law, private sales of firearms, the liability is actually on the buyer, and the seller has every right to assume that they're selling the firearm to a responsible.
And that's because we're in a gun-friendly state.
That is true.
If you went to another state or a couple states over, I think you'd find that. It doesn't matter who you are, who you sold it to, you're still going to get in trouble. Mm-hmm.
But that's actually a good myth to dispel, too, is that, gun stores will help you facilitate a gun sale.
A good gun store.
Good gun stores are your friends.
One thing we don't like to see is when... say there's a customer that comes in and he wants to sell us or trade us a gun, and then there's another customer standing right by on the counter and says, "Oh, I would be interested in that gun. How much you selling it for?" Because we obviously have to put a markup on it, so we have to buy it for way less and then put a markup on it, so we're making money. So you have that customer that's right next to him and saying, "Hey, I'll take that gun for more." you know. And then at that point we say, you know, take that out to the parking lot. Don't do it here, because that's not okay to do it inside of our FFL.
Right. Well, actually, that leads me to another myth that we could dispel.
Yeah.
Is that you can buy a gun for somebody else.
Oh.
Did you know that?
You can buy me a gun?
You can buy a gun for somebody else. Yeah. You can't do that.
Why not?
That's called a straw purchase. Have you ever heard that term?
I've never bought straw in my life.
You don't own any livestock? Mm-mm. Ricky, can you tell me a little bit about what a straw purchase is?
So a lot of people are confused. This is where a lot of confusion comes in versus gifting versus straw purchasing. Okay. A straw purchase comes in to where if say, Mark, you come to me and you say, hey, and I don't even necessarily need to know the reasons. You don't have to come to me and say, hey, I'm a convicted felon. I can't get this firearm, but can you buy it for me? You could just say, hey, can you buy this firearm for me? I'm going to be out of the state, but I would really have this deal going on.
I'd like it when I get back.
I'd like to have it when I get back. Can you go and buy it for me? Here's the money. That's not okay.
Here's $50. Go buy me a gun.
Yeah, go buy me a gun.
Yeah,
that's a federal offense.
Yep, that's a felony. You'll be in jail for.
And maybe you guys have seen this where somebody comes in or a couple comes in and they're looking at firearms and they pick one up and look at it or whatever, and then they leave and then only one of them comes back. That's a big sign, right?
Yeah, and I'm very, very picky with straw purchases as far as like when I see, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the transfer of money, but when I see somebody, even father and son, I've told people I can't do the sale plenty of times for stuff like this. But
well, there are some cases where it's a little different.
Yeah,
in family, it's a little bit different. But I don't take chances. You know, don't take chances with that because you don't know if they're family necessarily if they don't have their ID. But I've had people be like, oh, I forgot my ID. Can you get this gun for me today?
Yeah.
Here's the money. No, not doing that.
Alarm bells.
You know? Yeah, not doing that. But gifting it to a son or to anyone, really. We had a guy a while back take our AR-15 build class, and it was a company thing, and he gifted it to his employees. It was a gift, and that's just what it was.
So then what's the process then of gifting a firearm to somebody? Let's say, it was Steve's birthday coming up, and I wanted to buy him that really nice Mullen-Labe Glock.
So I think a good way to do it is just give them a gift card. And then they fill out the form, they do everything else, and they pay for it with a gift card.
That is a really safe way of doing it. Now, otherwise, what I would say is if you're going to gift it, you're the one coming into the store, not necessarily have the other person, and you do all the gifting elsewhere off our promises.
But it is important to understand that a restricted person is a restricted person. So any kind of felony, anything on that 4473 that they would answer yes that are not supposed to answer yes to, that'd be a restricted person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And you can find who's restricted if you're unaware. You can go on the state website
on the repository. Yeah. Let me see what this guy did.
Hold on, before I sell you this gun, let me just check your name here.
Well, and that is true. Go into the for as far as checking them private party. I'm just thinking of like. If you're unaware, if you're like, maybe I'm restricted and I don't know, go to the state website and find it out before you come in and do a background check and potentially get hauled off in handcuffs.
Or come to one of our classes and get your concealed permit.
Yep.
That seems to be the easiest thing or the most convenient thing to have.
Yeah, if you get a concealed carry permit, you know you're not restricted.
Give the gift of an enhanced concealed carry class and then give the gift of the firearm.
And it keeps on giving.
And give the gift of life.
And if it's and
life-saving.
The whole rationale behind the concealed carry permit is they've already done the background check on you. They've probably done a deeper background check on you than they would with NICS.
Yeah.
They've actually fingered you, at least in this state.
It takes a few weeks.
Yeah, because when I applied for mine here, they fingerprinted me, and they did a little bit deeper of a background check, and it took 2-3 weeks, but then I got it, no big deal. But then once you have that, even just a regular concealed carry permit, not an enhanced, because Idaho is kind of different in that regard, that there's two classes of it.
Technically has three different
and I think Ricky was going to talk a little bit about that one.
That's the one packet I had that was prepared.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute, but basically if you have they've already done all the background check and stuff on you, so you are basically already proved with your CCW permit, you're proven to be a law-abiding citizen, and that you have no criminal issues in your past or in your, on your record for that matter. So that's why it's a lot easier. The background check goes a lot smoother, and you don't have a waiting period if you have your CCW.
Yep.
You can, fill out the form, get the instant check, and take the gun home the same day. I believe whether it's a long gun or a handgun, correct?
Yeah.
There is no waiting period in the state of Idaho unless you have a delay, right? That's the only difference. So
We don't have the cool-off period that other people, other states
which
do.
doesn't work. That's a myth too. The cool off period doesn't work. That the guy in California that went and shot up the school in Northern California, where it was, that little town, he waited, and what did he do? As soon as he got that gun, what did he do? Did what he planned on doing anyways.
Well, and there's a lot of mass shooters that they said that people have planned it for months or even years in advance.
I would argue that it gives them a little bit more time to refine what they're thinking anyways.
Yeah, and so if you have to wait 72 hours or something like that, it's not going to make a difference. If you've been planning this thing for months or years or whatever, it's a sad fact, but it's the truth. So, Ricky, what was your...
Whoa, as I dropped my phone and...
Yeah, careful there. What was your myth that you had?
Well, it's not really necessarily a myth, I guess. I get this all the time, and it's kind of a pet peeve of mine because I'm the academy director.
You are?
Yeah. So I'm all about the
Is that
training.
what you do here?
I'm also just the pretty face.
Whoa.
That's why
He's
they
the
keep
face
me
of the
around.
podcast.
Yeah.
That's why he's here.
You do have a face for radio, Ricky. It's okay.
Just unseen radio.
That's why we're not a video podcast.
Once we go to video podcast, I'll have my brown paper bag over my face. That way.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. What does Ricky
That
look
would
like?
actually be good. That would be like was it Wilson on Home Improvement?
I never see
you
his
never
face.
saw his face.
Well, we'll just give you a fence to look over.
Yeah, right?
That would be good.
What does Ricky look like? Nobody knows.
And then one day I'll have the unveiling. When our episodes are waning, that's when I'll do it.
If anybody
so
says
to
Ricky's
try to
not
pick
creative, they're completely lying.
Yeah.
So what's your one myth that you brought with to the table?
So mine has to do with the constitutional carry in or permitless carry, as some people say, in Idaho. And what all that means. They say, oh, well, you don't need I get people all the time saying, oh, well, you don't need a permit in Idaho anymore. It's wonderful. It is wonderful. Constitutional carry is
fabulous.
Wonderful.
It's a great way to exercise your rights.
And I'm not downplaying that at all. But training is always important.
Paramount. And it can cover your butt.
It can cover your butt. And so here's some things, though, about the constitutional carry that a lot of people don't understand. You have to be a resident of the state of Idaho. And actually, I found the NRA has it wrong on theirs. They say both non-residents and residents can carry
negative
without a permit, but it's a resident only, and that's according to I verified that it's according to our website, our law, like our state's website.
Yeah, the state law states that you need to be an Idaho resident for 6 months.
And only within the state.
So This is what it exactly says. A concealed handgun by a person who is over 21 years of age, a resident of Idaho, and is not disqualified from being issued a license under subsection 11. So, and that would be if you were to apply for a concealed carry permit. So yeah, and actually it's kind of cool. There are some caveats to that 21. You can actually be under the age of 18. And this is something Steve and I we were talking about the other day, but you can be under the age of 18 if you have your parents' written permission. And I think you probably have to carry that around with you, that written permission.
And honestly, I don't know if there's much of a reason for somebody under 18 to carry a gun anyways.
Yeah.
So,
but now it is lawful for him to do it.
Other than hunting. If they're out in the woods and they're responsible, I mean, obviously, I don't know. My kids aren't going to go hunting by themselves anyway.
Yeah. I'll finish this up because I'm getting long-winded with it. But
yeah, you are. Gosh, what are you waiting for?
Take it forever.
The enhanced concealed carry, some things that the constitutional carry does not give you. You cannot carry outside of the state borders with constitutional carry. and you cannot carry on a college campus, state-owned college campus,
or federal buildings,
and federal buildings that's the same, yeah. But college campuses, once you have an enhanced concealed carry,
some college can't, not all.
Well, that's why it gets. That's the difference between policy versus law. But state-owned college campuses, you can, but just not in dormitories or
structures
in entertainment.
Right, and that's something that's important to put out there as well, is that just because there's constitutional carry doesn't mean you can carry everywhere in any way. You sure as heck can't carry in a school.
And we talked about this before. We're mixed. I think pretty unanimous. We're kind of mixed feelings about the whole constitutional carry thing, because you have a lot of responsible gun owners, absolutely, but then you get the one or two guys or gals that think, well, I have a constitutionally carried gun, and I'll carry it any way I want, wherever I want.
Yeah.
And even though I don't know how to use it, I'll carry it. And if I have to shoot that guy, I'll blast a fool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish he would.
and then he's going to be in jail for a long, long time.
Or you get people who carry it in the airport too, or forget that it's there. And I know somebody who works for TSA, and we were driving somewhere or whatever, and so we had some time. So I asked him all the questions that anybody would ask a TSA agent.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, you would not imagine the amount of firearms that we have to
confiscate.
And they don't necessarily confiscate them. They say, well, obviously you can't bring this through, so you got to take it home, or we're going to trash it. You know.
I have a buddy.
Crazy.
That yeah, maybe he's listening. He knows who he is too. He forgot about a gun that he packed in. He's a rep for a very large firearms manufacturer and forgot all about it. Went to get on the plane and whoops.
That's funny.
But see, that's
when you know you have too many. You have so many guns that you're starting to forget which ones you have in your code.
Well, and at least that's
not what it was. Like he was going from one state to another, both gun-friendly states, right? And then he was at that one state for a while doing his job, and he just kind of was packing stuff, didn't even think about it, chucked it in his carry-on. Yeah,
oops.
He had a nice. Let's come to this room, sir.
Where are the windows? Why is there a mirror?
And then it was embarrassing for him. That's all it was. That's why if he's listening, he's like.
But like I said, at least it's something. It's understandable where it's the industry you work in. You're around them all the time.
Yeah,
they're just kind of there.
That's what saved his bacon, because look, I'm a rep for this company. I travel all the time. Look at how many miles I flew last week. I mean, I travel all the time. Look at this. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, well, let's get this fixed.
Yeah, but he had that on his side. If it's just, you forgot your concealed carry handgun in your carry-on bag and you put it through security, you're going to be escorted and or dragged to that room real fast.
I forgot a knife one time that I had, and I was escorted to the side, not into any crazy room or anything.
Oh, man. I remember before, this was years and years ago, my brother, for some reason, thought it was really cool to carry Ninja stars around. we went to the airport for some reason, and this was, this was
God.
This was probably 25 years ago.
Oh, so it's okay.
This was way before things
before Ricky and I were even born.
It was before things got crazy, right?
Yeah.
And we're walking through the airport, and this was when there was no, you didn't walk through the metal detectors first, right? You could walk all the way to the terminal and not have to worry about anything until you were at the terminal. So I can't remember why we were at the airport. Maybe might have been when my aunt came back from Berlin. But he's like, uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Oh, it was really.
But the metal detector is right in front of the gate at that point.
It wasn't one. It was like 3. Why are you carrying those around?
Well, multiple enemies, multiple targets.
How old's your brother?
He's 6 years older than me.
Okay.
So he was probably like 18 at the time, 19 at the time. He was probably older than that, actually.
I think those are illegal now.
Are they?
I think so.
Ninja stars are cool.
There was a part in the...
You can still buy them.
I think they're illegal to carry around, then maybe.
Oops.
Well, this is also not by Idaho Falls, and this is also...
Well, this wasn't in Idaho Falls. This was in a pretty major city.
No, there was something, because it was mentioned specifically in the enhanced concealed carry class that I took a couple
I think
last
Dirks
week.
And all that other stuff.
Nunchucks. Ask Jim Love about nunchucks and
Ninja
stars.
if you have a concealed carry permit, right?
Mm-hmm. That's the difference.
That's when you can have those things.
I believe that is correct.
I think that's correct.
You are correct, sir.
Yeah, but I don't think you can constitutionally carry Ninja Stars.
Carry what I want.
It's my right.
I carry these guns around all day long.
Open carry.
Sun's out, guns out.
So yeah, it's actually, and we can just touch on this real briefly. You can't bring it on your carry-on, but you can fly with a firearm.
Yeah, Ricky had to deal with this. Yeah,
Ricky and I'm going to again here pretty soon.
You guys
are you?
I'm going to fly with 2 guns.
Wow. At the same time?
Yeah, on my carry-on because I'm special. No.
Special.
I just want to be like an air marshal and be like, yeah, I'll fly with whatever I want, whenever I want.
There you go. But yeah, there's a process to it. You have to lock it in a container, and you have to have approved locks, and this, that, and the other. You have to declare it at the gate.
And I believe some airlines have specifics too, don't they?
Yeah, it's frustrating. So TSA has their own stipulations, but then according to that's why this time, so I talked about that in one of our other podcasts. So this time I'm flying a little bit more
Prepared?
Yeah, prepared.
You know what you're getting into.
Yeah,
this time.
basically this time I'm gonna take two cases because I'm gonna have one for my firearms and then one for ammunition and magazines. Mm-hmm. I'm not gonna have any of the magazines loaded. It'll be all.
You ran into that problem last time.
Yeah, and I had to forfeit some.
And then you're not flying with the ammunition this time either.
I will. I'll fly with defensive loads, not the plinkers.
Yeah, so Ricky gets to go to a class, a jerk. And then...
Hey, you're going to be going to Virginia pretty soon if we can ever get you off your duff.
Guess what? There won't be any shooting there. Actually, I don't know.
I think there should be.
I may shoot.
There probably will be. You have to shoot.
Yeah, I guess.
Steve's going to get qualified to teach everything under the NRA.
Yeah, I'm going to become an NRA counselor, training counselor.
Really?
Yeah.
At least that's a goal. On that would be great.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can fly with a firearm. You just have to follow the rules for it, and there's a procedure.
Such a pain.
Go listen to our podcast, and on that one, we've done a lot of podcasts already.
Yeah,
covered a lot of ground.
Many.
We are
16 whole ones.
We are professional.
Thanks for listening to Range Minded. We're going to pick this one back up next week. You can pick it up on Sunday afternoon. We'll do part 2 of the myths and misconceptions about handguns. But until then, if you've got a comment, question, idea for the show, or any feedback, send us an email to podcast@iishooting.com or send us a message on our Facebook page. Just search Independence Indoor Shooting. Again, thanks for listening to Range Minded. We'll see you next time.